This is Movies I Don't Know Explained, a show where I look at the posters of several movies and try to figure out the plot for each film. After the predictions of every film, I will watch and compare what I said and what was shown from each. Barbarian looks sort of generic, with credits for the producers highlighting It, The Ring, and The Grudge at the top. Maybe the film has a good heart on what it wants to represent. The woman in the doorframe might have bought a home with some nightmares in its basement. Maybe there is a time element to the film, and the villain that haunts her is an actual barbarian. There could also be a use of witchcraft to summon the villain. This poster is somewhat German, which is an accident on my part. It probably discusses the King of England, or the United Kingdom, delivering an unfortunate speech. The film is set in the early 20th century, according to the microphone. There is probably a fight within the royal family that occurs throughout. This could also turn into a film about the First World War. Inkheart seems to be a fantasy epic, with Brendan Fraser's character being in the real world. Every part of the fantasy elements could be held inside the book he is reading. There could also be a plotline of their worlds merging. There also could be a use of psychic communication between worlds as well. Get Smart is a comedy movie, especially during Steve Carell's highest point in popularity. The writing for this film might be a little poor, with the blocking of Anne Hathaway's face being quite disrespectful. This film might be a buddy cop movie, but it could also suddenly become more serious near the end. This poster sort of speaks on its own. Oregon Trail is a tale of the Oregon Trail, but with zombies. The film might be more dramatic than comedic. There might be a scene where the group needs to fight off 20 zombies or so, leading to a couple of them dying. Additionally, there could be a duel or standoff between a few of the characters near the end. There is also a small chance they meet someone who later turns into a zombie and attacks them. Barbarian is a horror movie for sure, with interesting writing to boot. The producer's highlights gives this film more of an interest to audiences, but it doesn't represent how Barbarian works as a film. There is no witchcraft or horrifying barbarian ghost. Instead, there is a stale villain introduced that is disappointing. Peter Skarsgård has barely any screen time in the film, even though he has a lead actor credit for it. Unfortunately, Barbarian is a very bland and not interesting film, the pacing of which grinds to a halt near the halfway point. I had a few things right when it came to the King's speech. The King in this film, George VI, gets speech therapy to help with a stammer for the better part of a decade in the film's universe. There is family turmoil, with his older brother causing issues. The war that becomes the focus near the end of the movie is the Second World War. Emotions were coursing through me as I watched the end of this film, with the King's growth being very well written throughout. Inkheart is exactly how I described it, with a mythical land and the real world merging together for the entire film. There are no psychic capabilities between worlds, however, which made the film more grounded in reality. The plot is simplistic, with Brendan Fraser's partner being trapped in the fantasy world. The fantasy story is similar to Lord of the Rings in some ways, along with references to other tall tales. This film is most similar to Gulliver's Travels, except for the fact that the tone is more dramatic than comedic. Get Smart is a secret agent buddy cop film, featuring Steve Carell, Anne Hathaway, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Terry Crews, and David Koechner. The film is technically based off of a 1960s television series of the same name. Get Smart involves issues between two fictional groups, control and chaos, as they fight each other. Mostly a battle between Russia and the United States, the film discusses nuclear codes and disgusting gas tactics that haven't been used since World War I. The writing was actually very decent, with Anne Hathaway having a major role. The 1-2 punch of Hathaway and Carell carry this film, leading to them developing romantic interests with each other by the end. Oregon Trail is actually not about zombies during the time of cowboys. Instead, the film shows a young lady's life as it changes suddenly after several mercenaries attack her family. The family's horse is stolen by the gang, and she is kidnapped by them as well. Every member of the gang has good character moments, with one of them imploding the group. The side characters in this film are also very well written, with many of them getting time to shine throughout. Knowing none of these films, all of their subjects were truly just otherworldly. Barbarian was generic, with most of the entertainment coming from the dialogue. The lack of otherworldly characters made the title confusing. If you like a slow crawl to some kind of finish, watch Barbarian. The King's Speech was a very good watch, with the King, played by Colin Firth, carrying the film for the most part. The King's Speech presents itself highly and can make the viewer passionate to see the King's change by the end of the film. Perhaps the best out of this batch, I highly recommend The King's Speech. Inkheart is a very interesting mixture between bedtime stories and the Lord of the Rings franchise. Brendan Fraser impresses throughout with every line. The use of universes merging through reading pages from fictional works is very intriguing. I also recommend that anybody should watch Inkheart. Get Smart was a fun watch, with Steve Carell's quirks adding to its interesting plot without affecting the story. I never watched anything from the show that the film gets its elements from. The only downside to this film is the lack of use for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson throughout. Oregon Trail's delivery made it very interesting, with around half of its cast having the potential to die at any moment throughout. The interpersonal interactions between members of the gang make it very interesting. The film is slow at times, but results in an outstanding end. All in all, this batch had 4 high-level films that I'd recommend, with a 5th that has some issues. These films are mostly sourced from the Max and Paramount Plus streaming services. Thanks for watching this video.